Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us with very short notice. We're pleased to have you all here. My name is Gabrielle Bardall. I'm Vice President for External Relations at the Parliamentary Centre. I will turn over to our CEO in just one moment, but just some housekeeping here. We are on a Zoom meeting, which means that it is up to you to mute and unmute. We thank you all to keep your mics muted until the Q&A. For questions, we would like them to be received through by raising your hand, and we will call on you. And other than that, we ask our guests to please keep the remarks to 2 to 3 minutes maximum. We do want to ensure that the journalists have the maximum amount of time possible to receive your questions and to have that exchange. There is simultaneous interpretation available at the bottom of your screens. Please do use that function. And with that, if there are no other questions about the logistics of this, we will get started with words from our CEO, Tom Cormier. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Good afternoon, dobry wieczór to our friends in Ukraine. The Parliamentary Centre was founded in 1968 to support our House of Commons Committee on External Affairs to ensure our parliamentarians could more effectively address important international challenges. Over the last 53 years, we've worked in over 70 countries to help build inclusive democratic institutions, because we know that inclusive democracies are the best way to ensure prosperous and peaceful societies. We're Canada's global leader for democracy. We're here today because Vladimir Putin and his autocratic regime were so afraid of Ukraine's democracy that they're trying to kill it. He is afraid that since independence in 1991, and despite great odds, Ukrainians have been building a more inclusive and transparent form of government, one with a vibrant civil society, one with a growing consensus that the best way to ensure a stable and healthy Ukraine is through being a member of the family of democracies. We're very pleased to be here with the Agency for Legislative Initiatives, our civil society partner in Ukraine that has worked tirelessly for the last 22 years to help strengthen the Ukrainian parliament and democracy in Ukraine. We're also very pleased to have with us several members of parliament who have been democratically elected by their fellow citizens in Ukraine to help advance the rule of law and to achieve prosperity like their Ukrainian neighbors. They are all under attack right now and facing the darkest hour their country has seen since the Second World War. We need to hear these stories and show them our continued solidarity and support. Alexander.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. First of all, I should say that my name is Alexander Zaslavsky. I'm director of the Untitled Department of the Agency for Legislative Initiatives. Thank you for taking the opportunity today to listen to the voices of the Ukrainian members of the parliament about the representatives of different factions on what is happening actually right now in Ukraine. This is first-hand information. As you already know, yesterday at 5 o'clock in the morning Kyiv time, Russian Federation launched full-scale invasion of peaceful Ukraine. This is not a conflict, not an operation. This is war. And I should say that most of our team are right now in the shelters around Kyiv because we have, like, in 2 hours, probably every 2 hours, we have announcement of airstrike. Our dear participants will inform you on current situation in details. From myself and our team, I would like to say that the team of the Agency of the Legislative Initiatives closely monitor the situation in Ukraine. We stay in Kyiv and work to inform the world of the truth about Russian military aggression against our country. We are also ready to help our stakeholders and representatives of civil society organizations all over the world. We are open to any request for assistance. We urge you not to spread unverified facts about the course of hostilities and to trust only to the information from official sources. We believe in the armed forces of Ukraine. The truth is on our side. Currently, the Ukrainian army continues to repel enemy attack confidently. Ukraine is fighting and we stay strong. Now I'd like to give the floor to our members of the parliament. I'm not sure if Ivan Klimpush-Tsizantze is already connected to us. No, I don't see her. Then probably...
I would decide, sorry, Ivana has asked me to have her word if she will not have connection. Thank you. Sorry.
Then I should introduce Maria Ionova, chairwoman of the subcommittee on legislative support of the implementation of the strategic course of the state for full membership in the EU and NATO, enshrined in the Constitution of Ukraine, of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Foreign Policy and International Cooperation. Maria, please.
Thank you. Dear friends, I will be very concrete because Putin has changed the world order. And today, as never before, we see with our own eyes that the world is not responding in a proper way because the world does not react harshly and quickly. Now there is a large scale offensive against Ukraine in all directions. Putin's task is to take Kyiv in 48 hours. I will be very concrete. I'll try to be more emotional and also just to say the facts. What do we require? Introduction of no-fly zone in all over the territory of Ukraine and the closing the sky from Russian military aircraft. Disconnection of Russia from SWIFT, which will make it almost impossible for financial institutions to send money to another country or abroad. Third, we are asking now our EU partners do not accept Russia's gas blackmail or the EU in the form of increased gas supplies through Ukraine's pipeline. This is a diversionary tactic to, lessen EU sanctions. Fourth, the introduction of an oil and gas embargo, which could accelerate the change of power in the Kremlin or lead to the collapse of Russia. Sanction Russia's central bank, which is backing the Kremlin's financial war chest. The assets backing the Russian central bank reserves are mostly in the West. And sanctioning them will block Russian access to hundreds of billions of dollars. In addition, all those governments and parliaments we think that are now not acting and just online watching the destruction of the citizens of Ukraine, the Ukrainian state independence and sovereignty online, in our opinion, are appeasing Russia and complicit in Putin's war crimes. As we really believe us, all these days we're having online meetings with our colleagues from different national parliaments, European Parliament, on foreign affairs committees. We are grateful for the words of solidarity and support, but really we need now to act and we need actions. And to finalize, personal sanctions against Putin, Lavrov, and other high-ranking Russian officials. Regarding my finals is regarding Chernobyl nuclear power plant. We know that Putin's goal is to take control of the Rivne and Khmelnytska nuclear power plants, in addition to the Chernobyl. And therefore, we must act very quickly and, to prevent the Russians from attacking and capturing the Rivne and Khmelnytska nuclear plants. That is why we really call upon all politicians as publicly as possible to be. Also, not just, as I said, not just to stand with Ukraine, but to stop Putin immediately, to demonstrate and put pressure on governments and heads of states accordingly. I think that my colleagues will now share, because we are expecting in Kyiv the aviation bombing, and now all people went to bomb shelters. And also now I just got news that they are attacking all small airports because they would like to put land troops on near Kyiv. Thank you. I'm ready to answer your questions.
Thank you so much. Before I introduce another speaker, I would like to ask all the speakers to be short and direct in your comments.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No.
Member of the Parliament, European Solidarity Committee of Foreign Affairs. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I would like to introduce is Yegor Chernev, Deputy Chairman of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Digital Transformation. Yegor, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for your support. And I totally agree with Maria, what she said about the list of sanctions that should be imposed right now. Even it should be imposed actually yesterday or 2 days ago, because inaction in this time will lead to the further actions from Russia Federation. According to the data of the US intelligence and the UK intelligence, actually Russia Federation faced right now the much more resistance that they expected before. And actually our army and our civilians fight with Russian Federation in different cities, in different towns. We control all big cities, all big towns, and almost the whole territory of Ukraine. But the situation is quite difficult because a lot of Russian troops surrounded Kiev. It's near Kiev, near Kharkov and other our cities and towns. That's why we request to impose the sanctions. As Maria said, it's withdrawal from the SWIFT. It's blocking assets of the oligarchs and the close cycle of people who close to Putin. I mean, this so-called gold trillion of their savings outside of Russia. It's also we need your technical and weapon support with weapon of anti-aircraft weapon, anti-missile weapon, because actually this is one of our maybe weak side. We have anti-aircraft, but we need more. We need more. And actually, the last maybe what I would like to say, this is not a war between Russia and Ukraine. This is war between authoritarian, autocratic country and world and democratic world. And if Ukraine will lose, the Western world will lose. We fight not only for Ukraine, but for the democracy and for the values of our Western world. So we do expect for your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to introduce Yulia Klemenko, who's Deputy Chairwoman of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Transport and Infrastructure.
Hello. Probably you will not see me, but I'm staying on the street, so I'm just coming back from the territorial defense. I brought them weapon and food, so I just stopped in the car in the middle of the street. So if airstrike will happen, I will not able to shelter. Sorry, that's introduction. What I want to add to my colleagues, and I'm fully support on sanctions, etc., and I'm fully support that this is not actually the war between two countries, former USSR countries, but this is the, I mean, this is dramatic change of the geopolitical landscape, because now if we will lose, the democratic world will lose, basically. So the authoritarian regimes as well as the tyrannic regimes will take over for many years. And they will prove that they are more stronger in COVID fight, in fight with the democracy, etc., etc. So this is the main narrative which Putin is saying, that the tyranny is more effective than democracy, and he can win. So also I would like to add that many countries like Taiwan, like South Korea, and many countries now looking at Ukraine and thinking what will happen to them if partners and allies will not help them, and they will face to face with a much bigger country, China. So now we have a very, I would say, it's a very sensitive moment in the world. So we have to look at it not only from the Ukrainian perspectives, but also from the world and geopolitical perspectives. The second my point, and that Russia is really doing. I mean, it's a crazy. It's just a unhuman things. So we will send you video if you want what they are doing with civilians in our cities, with Ukrainians in our cities that are actually they're killing our kids. They just today they sent airstrike to the next to the orphan houses, and more than 50 kids has to leave, and it's thanks God that kids were at this point of time they were in the different buildings. So they destroy buildings, orphan building where orphan kids were at this point of time. There are I think more than 500 people now killed. I think yesterday it was 300. I think today it's probably more in all over Ukraine. We have a lot of people displaced from their cities and kids from their cities. Now we have a lot of people moving to the west of Ukraine. So it's a very big migration process as well. So what we're asking you is not only your concerns and mild sanctions, but you have as a democratic world, you have to stop this violence in the middle of Europe, and you have to understand that if Ukrainian will fall down, then these crazy people will move further to Poland, to Baltics, everywhere. So that you will not stop it, and this, unfortunately, you have to consider as well as a big humanitarian catastrophe, which is moving with Ukrainians moving to the borders, more than 10 kilometers of lines staying on the borders with Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, etc., etc. So please, I'm happy to answer your questions, but please consider this not like a war even between Russia and Ukraine. It's much bigger things now happening in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate them very much. We are going to move to the question and answer part right now in order to allow the journalists the maximum amount of time to ask their questions. I would ask all of our MPs, if you are able to turn a video on, we would appreciate that so others can see who is with us. The list of MPs that are participating was shared, so if you have a question for a particular person, you can use that. I'll start with a question from Ashley Burke. Please, Ashley, can you please introduce yourself? Thank you.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I'm with CBC National News in Ottawa. Canada's placed 3,400 military members on standby in case they need to be deployed quickly to join NATO's response force in Europe. The Canadian government this week also announced another 460 military members would join the 800 they already have that are helping support NATO in Europe. Is this enough military support from Canada?
Let us give a voice to Volodymyr Petrovich, member of the Committee of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine on Humanitarian Information Policy. Mr. Volodymyr. Your microphone, please. Turn. Включіть, будь ласка, мікрофон, пане Володимире.
Доброго дня. Я почну з дуже конкретної, дуже особистої історії. Я живу на північний захід від Києва, в маленькому містечку Ворзель, дуже тихому, гарному містечку, де вже 2 дні триває повномасштабна війна. Саме в це містечко втрапили снаряди, які зруйнували сиротинець, в якому містилося 50 дітей. Під обстріл потрапив, постраждав мій будинок. Сьогодні мені сусіди переслали фотографію в спальні мого сина, сплюндрованої якраз обстрілом. Поки ми зараз з вами розмовляємо, саме в цьому місці на північний захід від Києва, по суті, тривають бої з бажанням Росії прорватися на Київ. Тепер до загальних речей. Те, що зараз відбувається довкола України, це наймасштабніша військова операція в цьому регіоні, починаючи з часів Другої світової війни. Те, що зараз відбувається з Росією в Україні, це наймасштабніші і найінтенсивніші втрати, яких зазнала Російська Федерація з часу створення Російської Федерації за 30 років існування Російської Федерації. Ніде і ніколи вона не зазнавала таких масштабних і швидких втрат. Понад 1000 вбитих і ще 1800 поранених за 1,5 доби. Це свідчить про те, що українці здатні боротися, Збройні сили України можуть боротися і завдавати абсолютно серйозних втрат ворогу. Очевидно, що в українці достатньо мобілізовані і
Yes, I appreciate very much your comments, and I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but I would ask, we have moved to the question period now. Are you able to respond to the journalist's question, or can she please repeat it?
Очевидно, що ми вдячні Канаді, ми вдячні іншим країнам за допомогу, за те, що ми отримали вже військову допомогу, але ми розуміємо, що нам потрібно більше допомоги. Ми розуміємо, хочемо розраховувати на підтримку Канади в тому, аби досягнути консенсусу в рішеннях щодо відключення Росії від СВІФТу. Ми потребуємо ще додаткової військової допомоги. Українці показали, що можуть і вміють використовувати цю зброю, тому просимо надавати її в подальшому для того, щоб вона була використана на стримування російської агресії.
Can I answer to the question?
Yeah,
That was
add or probably
Oh,
less.
okay.
Okay. Yes, please add, and please keep your remarks brief.
Mhm.
Okay, Sophia, since you're unmuted.
No. I was thinking that, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can tell you the main issue. The main issue that to save lives of Ukrainian, it could be, first, it's only close the air. That's number one. We understand that it's really very complicated process, but it's number one. Regarding weapon, yes, we know that NATO also, they have agreed support for our air defense. And we really need it because while we were talking with you, for example, they are already in Khmelnytskaya Oblast. It's the center of Ukraine. They bombed with airstrike. So they use airstrikes already in different towns of Ukraine. It's a very huge, you know, what is a airstrike. So that is why we could only be saved by closing air eyes. And I just would like to underline and to share with you information that unfortunately regarding the humanitarian issue, they are bombing not only hospitals, but they are bombing today in Kharkiv a blood transfusion center, and there were 10 people were wounded. So the problem is that they really have very hard rocket attacks and airstrikes, and that is why we need weapon. And by the way, we have lines of people to be in territorial defense groups, and in some regions we don't have enough weapon to give people to defend their land. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I take another question from the press, please? Please raise your hand and unmute yourself if you have a question.
I have a question. I don't know how to. Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Yes.
First of all, can you please help me with identification, because is Sophia an MP who was speaking, because she was introduced to us as Maria. So I need to know who's actually we're quoting.
We'll send that in the chat. She's using her daughter's Skype.
Okay, got you. Thank you. I have a question.
Це Марія Іонова. Просто вона з телефону Софії.
Yeah, Maria Ivanova. It's my daughter, Sophia. Sorry. Yeah.
Maria, there is going to be a significant refugee crisis. People are leaving in probably in the millions. And it's going to be a crisis in Europe, but also, as you know, Canada is has the second largest Ukrainian diaspora in the world. And we would like to know from MPs, obviously you don't want to see this happening, but what can Canada do to provide refuge for people who will be leaving Ukraine?
For recent 8 years, the Russian aggression and our war has shown that Ukrainians are staying in their country and defending and trying, to renew their lives. But of course, now when there are the air strikes and rocket attacks, of course, we will have this migration crisis. But also now we require this humanitarian support in all humanitarian organizations working in Ukraine. I know that our government is working hard, but telling the truth now, I can't see international like Red Cross organization or Doctors Without Borders. So especially on the east and Kharkiv and in Sumy, on the north of our country, and on the south, where they are attacking us from the sea and from Crimea. That is why we need really inside our country international humanitarian organizations. But I can say that, of course, if our people will see that there is support and help, I'm sure that, only like women and children will go more far to the safe regions and districts, but another people will defend their country. That is why we just really need international organizations inside our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we please take another question from the press?
I see the hand of Lesia Vasylenko. Can we give her a floor, please?
Certainly. I was hoping she might be able to answer a press question. But in the meantime, yes, please, Lesia. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. And thank you to our organizers for putting this together. It's extremely important now for Ukrainian voices to be heard. And with that, I'd like to briefly address the previous two questions. So whether there's enough troops, Canadian troops stationed around Ukraine to be ready to move into Ukraine. No, there's not enough. And it should not be just Canadian troops. It should be joint forces of several NATO member states who are also allies of Ukraine. And they should be ready to move in at any point. Ukraine is countering the aggression of the biggest army in Europe, the third biggest in the world, and a nuclear power. Even if we worked for decades and decades, our army would not match that of Russia in magnitude. So we need assistance to be able to wake up on Monday morning in an independent and free Ukraine. We have the power to withstand the blitzkrieg attacks, but if it grows wider and if their special units get to land, if they increase their airstrikes, then we're in trouble. We need a no-fly zone over Ukraine now, and that is an issue to many countries. I have spoken to UK ministers, I have spoken to US congressmen. They are saying that they are not going to be involved with Ukraine on the ground because that might provoke a war with Russia. They're not prepared to risk the lives of their civilians. Excuse me, the world is already at war with Russia, because if Ukraine falls, the rest will follow in a domino manner. And you have to understand that and remember that. And your civilians are already in danger and at stake because your countries have already done enough to provoke Putin's paranoia about always being attacked by all different countries around him. So really, sticking to the commitments as prescribed in international agreements in the UN Charter and a million of different international rules, which we seem to all follow as a global community. In sticking to those commitments, there's a general responsibility of collective security. And in that, there's a general responsibility to keep a democracy, a sovereign state intact. And I very much hope and wish that there will be enough political willpower among the NATO allies and among UN members to do that. If we're not going ahead with the instruments of NATO, I can speak a bit, if you're interested, about mechanisms available to us within the UN without actually having to invoke Security Council. That has been done in 1950 in Korea, when it wasn't the Security Council who sent the peacekeeping troops, but it was the General Assembly. So that's also available out there. As for the refugees, the possible refugees flowing into Canada or other countries, the best you can do now is give visa waivers to Ukrainians. Ireland has done so, and I believe that other countries can do the same, can follow suit. It's important to understand that Ukrainians are a stubborn people and a free-loving people, and we are staying put. We are fighting for our land, we are fighting for our families, and we are prepared to defend our country until the end. But there are categories of people, the children, the senior citizens, who need protection. We cannot allow a humanitarian catastrophe and a real genocide of Ukrainian people committed by Putin to be exercised in the 21st century in Europe. So please open your borders to our citizens. That is it in answering to those two questions. I'm prepared to take others as well. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for those comments. We will take other questions now. I would like them, if possible, to be directed to some of our other MP guests that are with us here, so they all have an opportunity to add their commentary and views. If you have a question, it would be helpful to raise your hand, or you can just speak up.
Could I ask a question, please? My name is Lesia Shymko. I'm president of the Ukraine Support Fund, and I don't know specifically who to address this to, but one of the things we're hearing and we're concerned about is the rumor that there is a push in the White House to withdraw from the original idea that the US and its partners would support a Ukrainian resistance movement. We are starting to hear rumors that of all sorts of legalities, that this would somehow draw in Western powers into a direct confrontation with the Russians. From what we're witnessing in Ukraine, the West is already in a confrontation with Russia. So I guess my question is, have you heard any of these narratives circulating? Because that is something that I think would be morally defeating to the Ukrainian armed forces that currently are counting on a message of solidarity from the West.
Thank you very much. Are any of the MP guests that have not yet had a chance to speak, are you able to respond to this question? Yes, please.
Well, I can start, yeah. Well, I will start from the describing of the moral spirit of our army. And this is the highest level, I think, ever before. We have the unity in our society, despite of any attacks of Russian Federation, and despite of course, we disappointed of so soft sanctions right now from the Western world and our army also, because we are waiting for a strong sanction which will effectively influence on the Russia economy of the Russia of Kremlin to Kremlin, and we were expecting yet for these sanctions, but it doesn't influence on the moral spirit of our army, because our army is strong, as strong as ever before, as I said, and we destroyed a lot of tanks and armed vehicles and aircrafts of Russian Federation and Russia lost a lot of their soldiers. So we are fighting, and we will continue to fight for our country, for our territory, for our nation, despite of any steps of our Western partners. But we do expect of your support. Thank you.
You know, also our army is relying more not on Western support and Western opinion, but more on the unity of the Ukrainian people. And trust me, there is an extreme faith of the Ukrainian people in our army. We believe in them, we trust them, we support them. We will do anything to help them achieve the goals and the targets that they have to achieve in order to keep the Ukrainian population safe. And we hope that the West will follow suit, follow example, and A, support Ukraine with military help, and B, come and show the support to Ukraine by standing with Ukraine, not just in Twitter, in hashtags, but on the ground here with our army, our military, and our people.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions?
May I add the answer to previous question, please?
Certainly.
Yeah, I just want also to support my colleagues and say that, of course, in 2014, when we had destroyed the army, by the way, by Russian Federation, anyway, I also remember that resistance which Ukrainian people have. But of course, nowadays, when our armed forces is absolutely different, equipped, and all our common work during all these years, now we see the results. And of course, not only armed forces, which are our heroes, but also our people, Ukrainian, in different levels. I mean, we see how our society is mobilized. They are absolutely, you know, everyone knows their actions, everyone knows their responsibility, and that is why we really also rely on continuing helping by weapon. And Igor and Lesia are absolutely right that there is such a unity that if you will hear any fake news, because you also know that how hybrid informational war and propaganda is by Russian Federation, believe us, Ukrainians will never give up, never. It was during all our history by centuries. And by the way, regarding fake news, we are also kindly ask you really to pay attention to cyber attacks management system, which has to be blocked, because we have cyber attacks not only on our governmental websites, but also we have a lot of fake news. But again, Ukrainians are ready, and they also analyze not only information, but the sources of this information.
If I could just follow up, my intent was not to question the unity on the Ukraine side. My question was the impact that would be felt in Ukraine if the flow of assistance ceased from the West. In other words, if there was a policy suddenly implemented by NATO that it would not forward weapons through a corridor to Ukraine because they, as you mentioned, Russia is currently planning to seize nuclear stations, and there is a concern that they're going to begin blackmailing the West, threatening them with nuclear war, and saying, you see, we now have control of these very dangerous radioactive elements, and if you continue to support the Ukrainians and a possible insurgency, we will not promise to be careful with those radioactive materials. So I'm simply asking, have you made it clear to your Western partners that that sort of blackmail is going to make sustaining this opposition to a Russian invasion very, very difficult?
Look, we're in constant dialogue with our Western partners about all possible scenarios that can be born in the psychotic mind of Putin. But this one, it's as all the other scenarios actually, it's always about the question, what do you choose? I mean, again, to stand with Ukraine, apologize for that. So to stand with Ukraine, it's not just about words and democracy in theory. It's in action. Are they really going to let a country as big as Ukraine with 44 million people right in the middle of Europe fall into Russians' imperialistic demands? Well, then that will mean a restructuring of the global security structure, defense and security structure, and of international relations as we know them today, and also of international law as it is known today. I don't think that the world is ready for that. And we have confirmation of this from a variety of our vis-a-vis members of parliaments from a number of different countries, that no, the world is not ready for that, because that will have a lot of implications to different nations, both economically, socially, environmentally, and so on. And while the nuclear threat is there, and I agree with Maria completely, and what they are doing at Chernobyl, God knows what they are doing in Chernobyl, but the world must, this is why we need Western powers in here right now to kick the Russians out, because Chernobyl is not just going to affect Ukraine or Russia, it's going to affect the whole world, and everybody knows that really well. But to go in as far as blackmailing with, destroying the nuclear power plants and causing a nuclear catastrophe in Ukraine. Really, I mean, like the first ones who are going to die because of that are going to be the Russians themselves in Russia. So that's a bit, that's something that is like too far-fetched and that has good counter argument to it. But I hear your point, and the short answer would be yes. Ukrainians are constantly in dialogue with our partner MPs to make sure that they get the point that we're not giving our country up, and that they shouldn't either.
Thank you. I think we have time for one final question from the press, if there is one to be added.
Hi, it's Mike Blanchfield, Canadian Press. I don't know if you can hear me, but I unmuted.
Yes. No, we heard you.
Thanks. I just am wondering if any of the MPs can talk about President Zelensky. What's the latest on him? Is he okay? And how big a threat is he under? And if Yulia in her car out there somewhere can talk a little more about what it's like out there tonight, and just sort of describe what it's like to be on the street doing what you did.
I can take this question on Zelensky because I'm from opposition party. I will tell you the truth. Actually, I think Zelensky is doing much better than I expected, I would say, because he is not a professional politician. As well, he is not a politician. As well, he is not very experienced governmental officer. So he is actually learning by doing. And also he is probably the one of the maybe second president in Ukraine who is a president in war, with no experience and no background in this area. So I think he is doing well. He is in Kiev, so he is doing his job. As you know, we as a parliament approved martial law. So now the president and the prime minister and the speaker of the parliament, there's three people who is actually taking decisions fast, quickly, sending money, buying weapon, and giving other orders that the country needed, because we are fighting, we are in war, but we also need to keep the country safe. So we have to keep the balance between economic and social economic, social issues, and you know, when you are in war, nobody putting money in the country. So as well as nobody, everybody is trying to take out money. So and people as well as trying to take their money from the banks. So when you have panic, but we don't have panic, we Ukrainians, and our financial system is stable, macroeconomic system more or less stable. So the exchange rate drop maybe by 10%, not more. And we are, our economy is moving, our social payments, we are doing our social payments, we're keeping our people, we're paying for war. So, and we are in parallel actually in war, so in the military, in different military orders. So taking all these circumstances that we have in Ukraine and our poor response of our international partners, I would say that's I'm a position, so I can do it. And I think Zelensky is doing well. So I think Putin thought that Ukraine will fall down, will fall down will fall down probably in 24 hours, as well as Zelensky will capitulate also in 24 hours. But now we have almost 48 hours and they are not in Kiev yet. And I think in 24 hours or maybe in 48 hours, Putin will request for a ceasefire because he will need to at least reorganize his forces, and it's very difficult for them to fight inside the country. Because each and every person who is in the country trying to get a weapon and gun, and they are ready to shoot people who came to take their land and families. That's consider all this summarizing. I think at this point of time we are doing better than all expected, and we will fight. I do not believe that any sanctions as well as any paralyzed very in Congress, in US, in Europe, they have a very different opinion about Ukraine. 50% saying, oh, why would you need to help Ukraine? Let's Putin take care of them. 50% is saying, no, wait a second. It's not about Ukraine. It's about the much bigger issue in the world. So let's help Ukraine. So, and this is, the issues in each and every country I know. I talk to Americans, I talk to Europeans and Canadians. Canadians maybe less because we have a lot of Ukrainians in Canada. But in Europe, in US, it's a very different opinions. But we are not relying on these opinions. At this point of time, we are fighting. We will fight with weapon or without. And this is not about we are happy if you will close the year, because it's very important. If you close the year, we don't have enough power to fight in the air or in the sea, so we need your support in air. So close it, please. Close it in the probably where we have nuclear plants, because this is Europe's safety as well. In general, I think in next 48 hours we will see how it will result. But now I would say it's stable. It's much better than everybody expected. Thank you for the long for listening to my long speech.
Thank you. Volodymyr, please, some remarks from you. I'm sorry, but you're muted.
Я теж як опозиціонер був одним із завзятих критиків Володимира Зеленського за його недостатню увагу до розбудови армії, за його недостатню увагу до повідомлень західних розвідок про можливе вторгнення Російської Федерації. Але мені здається, що з моменту початку війни його меседжі, які він дає в своїх зверненнях до народу, дуже правильні. І надзвичайно важливо для людей, що він знаходиться в Києві, що він ці меседжі адресує, власне, з Києва, залишаючись на місці, і таким чином залишається, по суті, його меседжі йдуть в резонанс з суспільними настроями. Це дуже добре, і це справді об'єднує українців.
Thank you very much. Do we have any final questions?
I have a question. Like, do you have an idea of how many people are still in Kyiv and how the civilian resistance is taking place and how many weapons have been distributed to the civilians?
Well, I can start to answer this question. Maybe my colleagues will add something. During these 2 days, we have a huge queue in our center of gathering center for this territorial defense units. We have a lot of men who joined to these troops. According to our data, it's more than 20,000 weapon was delivered to these people just in these 2 days, and
24 тисячі останні цифри.
24,000. So yeah, and it's not the end, because people just come and come and come. This is the picture right now.
Probably I would ask if Yulia Klimenko has more information, more detail regarding territorial defense units. But also, I just would like to say that, we have more people volunteer who are ready than, even arms. That is why we are absolutely sure that we will win.
Yes, I will add, definitely, we distributed more than 25,000 only for Kyiv, and it's coming more and more. And you have to understand that, many Ukrainians had hunting weapon. So what I can see that we have a lot of weapon in hands, and a lot of people who are really coming by families, and they are just coming for the territorial defense, and they are staying with the army and defending their cities, their communities. So it's a huge amount of people. Today, I just I saw that more than 300 people came to the territorial defense of Kyiv, and it's one day, and they just stand. With a weapon or without weapon, and waiting for the Russians to invade Kyiv. So it's a really big amount of people who is coming and coming, and not. So I think it's in next few days we will have 1,000 people. A lot of people left. Because you have bombing, you have airstrikes, particularly women with kids. But Kyiv is 5 million people city, so at least more than 50%, I think even more, is staying in Kyiv. So many people staying in Kyiv in shelters. So nobody, because you have critical infrastructure, you have many other things you have to take care of, and the people going to work and coming back to their families, and they're staying and they're waiting, and they are not going to capitulate in any way. Today I just brought a guy who is in the railway stations. I gave him a ride. So he is going 10 kilometers by foot, just to go to his job to place and to help evacuate people from Kharkiv and Sumy. So he is actually spending, maybe 4 hours or 3 hours just to get to the work and back home, and to help people, Ukrainians, to relocate and drive his train. So it's amazing. And I would say I believe in my country and my people and my army. So it will not be easy task for Putin.
Yulia, I'll just correct you because from 5 million people, I'm sure that not 50% has left. I think that
maybe people
around,
in shelters. I don't know, because I don't see people in the street. Maybe people in shelters.
I think that probably around more than 1 million people has been left Kyiv, but not 50%, I'm sure.
Okay. We are getting to the end of our time here. Unfortunately, I think we are going to stop with our questions at this point. We will be able to assist our journalists with additional contacts. We are working on that. I appreciate the request that we have received so far. And with that, I will turn it over to Tom and to Alexander for some closing thanks. Thank you. Tom, you're muted. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabrielle. I just want to thank our brave and determined Ukrainian legislators and civil society partners for sharing your stories with us and being very clear with us that this is the time for action. And I want to thank the media for their attention and their interest in the story. We look forward to connecting you. These stories need to be heard by more people, and we're committed to being with you in that regard. Thank you so much. Дякую.
Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini.
Thank you much, and close the ear, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexander?
Just one comment that you may see that representatives of different factions, from ruling factions, Verkhovna Rada, opposite factions, European Solidarity and Holos, they're united at this moment, and they united in perception of the situation and in the demands of Ukraine, also from our international allies.
Thank you.
Thank you, and yeah, Slava Ukraini.